Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from in the world. As you guys are trickling in, let us know where you're joining us from. I know we usually have people from all corners of the world. We've got representation from two ends of North America on the PredRev Live here for you today. I am up in Vancouver, Canada, and Gibran, where are you?
I'm over here in sunny side Cancun.
There you go. That's the dream right there. Where are you guys joining in from? Drop something in the chat. Let us know. Let us know where I'm looking. I'm looking and waiting for you guys to say something. While you guys are joining us, let me tell you some things. So, housekeeping. Any questions at any point during this live stream, pop them in the chat. The chat is going to be looked at. I'm looking at it right now. I see you, Cincinnati, Ohio. We got another Cancun. We got Toronto, Canada. Hey, another Mexico City. Okay, awesome. So yeah, that chat, you guys are using it. That's exactly where you should put your questions at any point. Pop them in the chat and we will get to them. Some other pieces of housekeeping. We have an ebook that is coming out. It is called The Art of LinkedIn Prospecting. We are going to drop the link to get that ebook in the chat. It's a great place to learn about things like profile optimization, what connection request messages work, what kind of copy works, how you should go about social selling. It's a really pertinent subject right now. So please check that link out, download that ebook, The Art of LinkedIn Prospecting. And then our other piece of housekeeping is that we have a Slack community. For those of you who have joined us on things like our Own Your Growth, you would have heard of that before. We will also drop the link to that. So that is a community of sales practitioners, sales leaders. We've got a couple of channels in there where you can chat to other salespeople. You can ask questions. Speakers from our events go in there and answer questions. We go in there and answer questions, ask questions. So it's a really fun place to be to check out what's kind of going on these days in the outbound sales world. But without further ado, let's start chatting about what we're going to talk about today. So today, you saw the title, How to Overcome the Fear of the Phone. Any first-time SDR knows that fear, or even anybody who has ever been a first-time SDR knows of that fear. It is sometimes terrifying to make those calls for the first time. And there seems to be a different technique or a different knack for each SDR to overcome those fears. But definitely something that really helped me as an SDR when I was struggling with that was to hear from SDRs how they overcame it. So that is exactly why we've got Gibran on the line with us today to share with us exactly that, how he got over the fear of the phone. So little intro, I am Sarah Hicks. I am your host today. I am an SDR manager at Predictable Revenue. And my guest, Gibran, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Gibran. I'm here from Cancun, Mexico. And I've been an SDR for Predictable Revenue for almost a year now. And I'm loving every moment of it.
Nice. I have a question for you in chat. Whether you are a full cycle salesperson, whether you're a sales leader, if you have ever done cold calling in your life, please put a 1 in the chat if you've ever been afraid of the phone. Now, that could be feeling so anxious that you don't even make those calls and you find any way you can to avoid them. It could be kind of stammering and stuttering your way through those first calls because you're so stressed to kind of have that conversation, or it could just be that kind of dread that you feel every day when you're like, oh geez, I've got to make my calls. So put a 1 in the chat if you have ever been afraid of the phone. I'm gonna put a 1. I'm gonna put a 1 in the chat because I can tell you I was really afraid of the phone for a really long time
I'll even
as an
put two
SDR.
myself.
There you go. We got some 1s coming in. Absolutely. Absolutely. We've all felt that. We've absolutely all felt that. Thanks, you guys, for your 1s. Yep. Yeah, tons of 1s coming in. We can all relate to that fear of the phone. So, Gibran, tell me how you felt about the phone when you first joined PR.
Well, to give you some context, I actually try to avoid in all my career life, I tried avoiding being on the phone because I had a really bad experience as a call center agent back in my college days. So I was like, I'm going to avoid that. And when I found out I got into predictable revenue, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be on the phone again. Why not? Let's do it. Let's put our right foot into it and let's keep a right positive mindset on it. So
Nice.
I was
Okay.
scared, but totally into doing it.
Cool, cool. So you were like, at one point in your life, you're like, never again. I'm never touching that phone. It sucks. And then you were like, okay, an opportunity has arisen. I need to potentially put my fears behind me and try to overcome this. So tell us who you were targeting on the phone when you were first calling on behalf of predictable revenue.
So when I first started calling on behalf of political revenue, I was calling into people in marketing, sometimes CEOs, or sometimes people into events. That's what my project was focusing on.
Okay. Okay. Marketing people, notoriously tough to cold call. Definitely like CEOs and those top level execs at any company, tough to cold call into. So why do you think you mentioned that you had a bit of a bad experience with the phone? So why do you think you had this kind of fear or anxiety around the phone? Like, can you tell us that juicy story of why you hate the phone?
Well, I was a college kid, so I was on the phone. I was honestly just freaking out. You could see it a mile away. My supervisor saw it a mile away, so he was like, "Nope, you're not good on the phone," and that just stuck to with me. And I was like, "Yep, I'm not gonna do that again." So
Okay.
that's my pain point story there.
You got it. So you were nervous. Somebody put you down about it, and you're like, wow, man, that's like a real good way to make me feel confident and make me better on the phone. And then it just left a bad taste in your mouth and you didn't want to touch it again. Okay, cool. Okay. Of all these targets that you're speaking about calling on behalf of predictable revenue at the beginning there, so the marketing people, sometimes the CEOs and execs, and then even anyone else that you have called since on other projects. Who do you think of all your targets or all your prospects have been the scariest to call or the most difficult to talk to?
That's easy. It was right when I was in between projects. I was calling on behalf of predictable revenue, being an SDR for predictable revenue instead of one of our clients. So I was calling into VPs of sales, managers of sales. So me barely being 6 months into the job, into the SDR world, I felt like that little guy talking to that big guy, and I was just like, I have no idea what's going on in your world, and I'm just trying to pitch something to you.
Oh man, Gibran, I relate to you 110% on that front because, of course, I was an SDR with predictable revenue myself. I started in that about 2 years ago, just maybe like two and 4 months or something, 2 years and 4 months now. And same as you, first time I had done the actual SDR role, certainly an outbound calling role. And it was terrifying. Same thing, targeting these salespeople because, of course, we reach out to those sales leaders that want some help building out their outbound function. And I was calling specifically the people that were just so scary to call were when I was targeting the kind of industrial and manufacturing space. So I was calling these people. It's actually a really great space to target if you guys are thinking like, who should I be calling? Because these people, well, maybe not now because of COVID, but they are more likely to pick up their phones because they're more of like a traditional industry where they've still got desk phones. So unlike the tech world where everyone's on their cell phone, they're like, unknown number, no thank you. These people would pick up their phone more often. So I was like, okay, it makes sense for me to be trying to do all my calls to this space. But the flip side of that, like traditional type of industry, is that these are traditional types of people that don't really want to speak about any kind of new solution that might exist. And a lot of the industrial and manufacturing companies don't do outbound. They don't even know what that is. It's like their VP sales is sometimes VP sales and marketing because it's the same thing for them. They're trying to generate inbound. So for me to go in and call them and try to pitch something completely new to them, not only was I calling these VP sales who are already difficult to speak to because they are a sales veteran themselves, but I was actually trying to convince them to do something that a lot of them really didn't want to do. And it was so terrifying. I really was starting to get that kind of anxiety where you're like, you get one like negative response to something you say and you hang up and you're like, okay, the next dial. And it's like my shoulders like raise an inch each time somebody says to me, no, thank you. And then at the end, I'm just like an anxious mess. And yeah, I won't get into how I address that problem just yet because Gibran is going to teach us how he did first. But guys watching, another question for you. Who are the prospects that you guys have targeted that you have been the most intimidated to call? Who are the personas? What industry were they in? Yeah, who are the scariest people that you're like, oh, geez, I have to call one of these. This is going to be really hard. They're really intimidating. They're really scary. It's tough for me to talk to them. What do you feel? Gibran and I felt the salespeople. And generally we're talking like execs, director level and above. Sometimes it might be somebody like a CEO, like a founder, depending on the size of the company, if they're kind of tackling that sales function themselves. But tell me, who is the scariest person or persona that you've ever had to call? I'm looking at the chat and I don't see anything yet. So I'm just going to keep waiting for you guys to put something in. All of you guys who put your ones in, please put it in. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear, because later I'll also ask you how you got over it and how you worked it out. So I don't know. Oh, here we go. Rodrigo, thank you so much. We've got chief medical officers. Okay, I understand that, because you're like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. How am I supposed to call this person? What are they going to ask me to do? Like I don't know, like a what's that thing where you stick like a tracheotomy? They're gonna be like, I don't know. They're not going to ask you to do that, but they might ask you what it is. You don't know. You know what people are going to ask you. I'm not a doctor. Nonprofit leaders. That can be really intimidating, Sandra, because those people, they're good people. They're out there they're fighting the good fight, doing the good work, and you're just trying to make money off them. That's intimidating. Who else? CEOs. Absolutely, Jason. CEOs, terrifying. They're the top. They're the top of companies. I mean, they're all human beings. We got to remember they're all human beings. But these people, I understand why you've been completely intimidated by these guys. Marketing is quite rough, Tomas. It totally is rough. These people are like, they know how to speak, they know how to word things, they write copy, they write scripts. And so if you come in and you stutter, you come in and you're unsure, they're not going to have any of it. Marketing, another marketing, Caesar, I feel you. Prospecting clients. Anyone in IT, totally. IT people, they want none of it. They want none of your smoke on the phone. Anyway, thank you so much, you guys, for that. So back to you, Gibran. Okay, tell us how you overcame this fear of the phone.
Well, the first thing I did was, being totally new into it, I first knew that I needed to get feedback on how I was doing. Now, we had an SDR manager who already had scheduled cold call trainings. So I wanted to take it a step further. And I actually just kept bugging him. His name is Seth. You probably remember him. And be like, hey, Seth, I got a call for you. Is this any good? And he would give me the feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I'd take that feedback, do a couple of more calls based on what he told me, and then I come bug him again and be like, hey, I did what you told me to. Did I do it right, or did I do it at all? And he'd be like, oh, okay, you actually did it this time. Let's work on something else. And it was kind of a back and forth thing, also with other SDRs, my other peers who had more experience than I did. I'd be like, hey, can you check this out? What do you hear on it?
Hmm. And why
And
do you think that was so valuable? Like, was it the sheer repetition? Was it the specific feedback? Why was that, going to your leaders and getting feedback? Why did that help you so much?
well, it's because I admit to myself that I'm new into this world, into this job, so I have nothing to work on. So
Mm,
I'd be like, I should pick someone else's brain who's been doing this for a year, a couple of years, 5, 10 years.
hmm. So it's kind of like you didn't know what you didn't know coming in because you were brand new. And then potentially adding to your anxiety or adding to your fear was this like uncertainty where you're like, I don't even know how to do a good job. So of course I'm going to be terrified to pick up the phone. I have no like guide to follow, no rule book to follow. I don't know how to do it correctly. So that's what you went to your leaders and your peers to kind of help you solve.
Exactly, you said it right there.
Cool. That's a great idea. Um, yeah. What else did you try?
Something else that I tried is that, being on the phone, your body is pretty much just there. And, whenever you're nervous, your body can stab you in the back very easily and start sweating up on you. You start biting your nails. You start, just freaking out a little bit. So something that I did was, I got myself a fidget toy. I got one right here.
There you go.
I got another one right here. And it just helps me put my body at ease. It's doing something that requires no concentration, no thinking. So that way it doesn't act on the fear or the nervous that I get on any call or any given day, and allows just
Mm.
my mind and my mouth to work in unity and work in unison.
Hmm. Interesting. So it's a way to like redirect that nervous energy and kind of you've got an outlet for it so that your hands can be busy doing whatever they're doing and then you're streamlined and you're focused and as you said kind of like mind mouth connected in one.
Exactly.
Show us those fidget toys. Get them real close to the camera. I want to see how they work.
All right, so I got this. I'm not sure what it's called. Everybody has a different name for it. I just call it a squeezer.
Squeezer, nice. It looks
And
like one of those like grip strength. You probably also have a really strong grip now on that one
yeah,
side.
that's another benefit. So you got to get that workout in.
You're like really good at climbing with tiny handholds now.
Yeah, not a lot of mountains in Cancun, but climbing a ladder is no challenge now.
There you go. You can climb it with no feet, just hands.
Exactly.
Cool. That's nice. I like that. And what's your other little fidget toy? Is it like a fidget spinner? A little squeezy? What's it?
It's a little two magnets. They connect together. No big thing.
Mm,
Just maybe something just to twiddle with between your fingers. Uh, Something that has helped me just get through the day.
awesome. I think that's a great strategy. Definitely we've all got these little nervous mannerisms that appear when we're nervous in our body. It definitely shows. And I bet you that if you're taking out that nervous energy physically, it won't impact your voice as much. Because I find something for me, especially when I'm nervous, is that my voice shakes a little bit. Like I don't know what that is, and I don't know why your body does that to you. As you said, like your body just absolutely stabs you in the back. It's just the worst. Um, but for me, definitely when I'm nervous, I get like a bit of a shaky voice. And then the person on the other end of the phone is like, this person's got a shaky voice because they're trying to scam me or they're trying to cold call me and sell me something right away. And you're just not going to get anywhere. So I can absolutely appreciate the benefit of being able to redirect that nervous energy out of your speaking voice and out into your body. Anything else that you tried or that you ended up kind of developing for yourself to help you get over that anxiety?
I actually did develop something. Everybody's got a cold call script. Everybody follows their own method. I kind of developed something a little bit different, not world breaking or anything like that, but I like to call it a quiver and an arrow. It's basically a document that is filled with arrows that are my favorite phrases for rebuttals, for pitching the meeting, for a compelling story or an elevator pitch. And all these arrows are labeled like when to use them in any situation. And the reason I made it this way is because instead of following a cold call script where you're very vertical, horizontal, like it has to go this way or it has to go that
Mm,
way, you instead have like a quiver or you have your arsenal of
mm,
what you feel most comfortable saying and you know what works and what's tailored towards your ICP, towards the people you're actually calling.
mhm.
And you sound more natural, like in a real conversation, instead of going into a cold call script flow where you're again very in a specific order. And if it doesn't go in that order, then it's like I'm stuck. I don't know what to do.
Totally. Totally. That can be the most terrifying part of being on a cold call is going like, okay, I've amped myself up. I'm prepared. I know what I'm going to say. And then you say this stuff and then the person doesn't respond the way that you expect, or they ask something you've never asked before, or they have an objection that you've never encountered before. And you're like, oh man, like where am I supposed to go from here? But as you're saying, if you've got your arsenal or your quiver full of your weapons or your different arrows, you're like prepared. You can pick the one that suits the situation best rather than being absolutely stuck with the script that you have written for yourself that as you're saying is like very linear, it's very contained, there's not a lot of kind of freedom or flexibility in a lot of scripts. That's a great strategy. So Gibran is the Legolas of cold callers is what we're saying. He's like jumping off cliffs and like, you know, shooting arrows all over the place, just ready for anything that's gonna come into his path. So one last question around this. So I asked you before who you were targeting when you first worked for PR, and you mentioned it's those marketing people. It was some CEOs. When you changed projects to the next project that you did after that, did you feel that you started from scratch, as in you went all the way back to being as anxious and fearful as the very first time you called, or were you a little bit more prepared this time?
You definitely get a confidence boost. After you get a couple of meetings under your belt, you have a couple of really meaningful conversations. If you're a first time SDR in your first project, you're always asking yourself, I wonder if I'm going to ever get that first meeting. And when you change from project to project for whatever reason, you no longer ask yourself, geez, I wonder if I'm going to get a meeting at all, to I wonder how fast I can get my first meeting. So you definitely get a big boost. It's kind of cocky to say maybe an ego boost, but know that you can actually do this, and that while you still have like a lot to learn, you're not you're not starting from scratch. You're
Nice.
starting from a launching point.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. You know that you were capable of doing it before. You've done it before. Now all you have to do is figure out how to do it for this new project or for this new company. So as you're saying, it's not about can I do it at all. It's how quickly can I do it. That's a great mentality. Um, and back to your first point of having a leader who helped you through your kind of anxious phase at the beginning. Absolutely, that was my experience too. I told you guys that I would tell you how I got over it as well. That was it. It was speaking to somebody with a lot more experience than I had, somebody that has managed a ton of sales development teams, that was an SDR many times himself. You can look him up on LinkedIn. He's a sales influencer, sales thought leader guy. His name is James Buckley. He is such a sweet person, super helpful to me. So I actually prospected him by accident. He was a sales leader at Ring DNA. I was not supposed to prospect him because he was a podcast guest, but I did anyway by accident. And he responded very kindly. Instead of the unsubscribe, just the straight to spam or the like, I'm not a prospect by, he was like, hey, I was actually on the podcast. I'm not a prospect for you, but like, good luck in the search. And I responded very, kind of apologetically, being like, oh, I'm so sorry, James. I'm new to this job. I didn't know that I didn't know you've been on the podcast. Thank you so much for being so gracious about this. And then he said to me, well, I've managed a whole bunch of first time SDRs. If you ever have any questions, I'd be happy to chat. And I was like, oh, James, you don't know, like I'm all questions. I only have questions at this point about this job. And we got on a quick call and he changed my whole point of view about it. And similar stuff to you saying, like, if we can change the way that your mindset is, it's about how quickly you can get that meeting versus can I get it at all? Or it's about focusing more on the conversation that you're having with these people rather than going to yourself like every single call I have has to be a meeting, otherwise I'm a failure. So the mindset shift there was huge. And then also learning that I could take my own approach to it, like you developed, Gibran. So your quivers and arrows method is something that you've designed because it works for you. And every SDR out there needs to do the same, because you can't just have one universal script and it work for everybody. It needs to sit well with you. It needs to feel authentic to you. And then if you can deliver it with confidence, it'll sound great and you'll do so much better. And we have a question from somebody. Surya is asking, Hiran, could you share your documentation around your quivers and arrows? Do you think that you could, we can send it out at a later date? And actually, maybe guys, that's a really good opportunity for you, especially Surya, who's asking for it, to join the SDR, the PredRev community that we have, Slack community, because Hebron can post it in there. But yeah, Hebron, maybe you can screenshot it for us and give us like a bit of a template on how you set up your quivers and arrows, and then we can share it with these guys.
Sure. I mean, I could do that right now. I have a little something. It's not as nice as I would want it to be, but yeah.
That's okay. We won't do it right now. We'll get it. You can clean it up a tiny bit, whatever you need to do, but it doesn't need to be perfect. I think these people would just like to use it as a bit of a template for their own. But yeah, thanks for that question. Sir, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from that. So guys, another question for you. What are some of the strategies that you guys have used to overcome that phone anxiety? We've chatted. A couple of the things that have helped both Gibran and I have been chatting to somebody more experienced than us. That makes sense. Kind of leaning on whether it's your peers, whether it's your manager or whoever that might be, but somebody who has done this before and who has overcome it before. Ask them to share some tips, ask them to share some feedback on your call structure. And not only are you getting that feedback, but each time you implement it, it's like you're building that neural pathway that's going to help you get better and better and stronger on the phone. We talked about redirecting that nervous energy. We've got fidget toys that Hebron uses to redirect that energy. Somebody might do something like, tap their foot or, I don't know, scribble their pen, anything to kind of redirect that energy. And then, of course, preparing yourself to be flexible, which kind of sounds like an oxymoron. It's like you can't over prepare for these calls and expect them to go exactly the same way every time. You need to give yourself a really flexible tool belt or quiver full of arrows that will help you address any situation. So, how have you guys addressed that? If you guys have anything new that you've tried that we haven't mentioned, please pop it in the chat. Give us a little story. I'll share it for everybody so everyone can benefit from it. Or even if you have tried the things that we've mentioned, like drop that in the chat and say, yeah, I worked with a manager. I worked with my peers to get over that. Or I don't know, maybe you have something totally crazy that no one has even thought about before. Like you since we're all at home and no one can see, you take off all your clothes before you do your cold calls because it makes you feel really confident, and you just do them in the nude. That would be great. Somebody would benefit from that out there. So I'd love to hear it. If
If it
that's what you
works, it
do,
works.
let me know. And I'm going to take if you're silent, my assumption is it's because you all do it nude. And I'm going to tell everyone, I'm going to tell your bosses that you cold call nude. Take a break if you're not feeling it. Tomas, thank you. Absolutely. You got to give yourself a break. You can't be absolutely relentless. You can't be beating yourself up about it. If you need a break, take that break. That's a really, really great point. Anything else? Everyone except Tomas cold calls nude right now. That's it. They're all nude. They all cold call nude. That's admission right there. Kyle thinks his job wouldn't like that. Well, Kyle, I didn't hear any otherwise. So I'm gonna tell your boss that you cold call nude. Okay, I will move on to the next bit here. So Gibran, what advice do you have for first-time SDRs on how they should overcome that fear?
So definitely, if you're a first-time SDR like me, and if it wasn't part of your career path to be an SDR, I mean, is it really anybody's? Did we ever imagine ourselves in this position? I would say the first thing is educate yourself on being an SDR. It's not your fault that you didn't, you weren't born with SDR experience out the womb, but where you go from actually getting the position and how fast you develop your career is totally it's like up to you. So what you want to do is educate yourself on what the role consists of, who are the thought leaders you should be paying attention to, influencers, people you should learn, and definitely what reading material, what audiobook you should be having on hand. This day and age, education is pretty much free or accessible to anybody. So you definitely want to take advantage of that.
That's a great point. And we have a couple of suggestions that have come in on the chat because everyone was afraid that I'd tell their bosses that they cold call naked. So Rodrigo says you crunch some push-ups. Great. That's another example of getting out that nervous energy. You like
Love it.
crunch some push-ups. You're pumped. You're like, I'm confident. I'm swole. Let me make my calls. And then we've got playing a song that gets you in the vibe. Absolutely. I've heard that one from a couple of SDRs, like playing their pump-up song, playing their confidence song. Maybe for you, it's a really sweet, slow ballad, but it just absolutely gets you in the vibe for cold calling. Relaxing music. There you go, Priscilla. That's exactly what I was saying there. You listen to a good, like, what's that one by Fleetwood Mac? Landslide. Just takes you there, takes you to that place you need to be in for cold calling. Dance to the music on the waiting line. That's Abby. That's a good suggestion. It's like a way to kind of get positive, get happy, have a little smile on your face when you get through to that person. I'm sure that reflects well on that cold call. And Anna, good song before calls. Absolutely. Sounds like music helps a lot of people out. And Gibran, as a follow-up to your point there, so you're mentioning you gotta learn. There's a lot of resources out there right now for you to learn from. What are your go-to podcasts or books, or who are the thought leaders that you follow?
Well, I mean, besides my peers, like for example, Seth List, he was my mentor and he was someone I just would take his advice from. I remember I even asked you, Sarah, on who do you follow. I remember you said Sarah. I know I'm just gonna butcher the last name. Could
Fraser.
you exactly?
Yeah.
Justin Michael, um, Chris Voss. So definitely a lot of people to go. There's a lot to choose from, but I would always just say, ask if you're a new SDR, ask a mentor, ask someone who's been doing this for years to say, hey, who should I start with? Because there are a lot of people.
Awesome. We had just a couple more suggestions come in. Jack Hogg says standing in a power pose with your legs far apart and your hands on your hips. I think that one would be particularly effective if you are naked. But I will say that's interesting that you say that because I know a couple of people who went to business school and it was something even they were told to do before a presentation, like before you come into the room, power pose. And it does help you feel like more powerful. It helps you carry yourself in a certain way. And again, I'm sure that would come across on the phone.
I never heard that one. I'm gonna give it a try.
Yeah, give it a try. And okay, back to you, Gibran. So, yeah, thank you for mentioning those couple of thought leaders. You guys, if you want to learn, if you want to know about thought leaders, you should follow. It's another question you can ask us in the PredRev Slack community because there's plenty that we can share with you. But continue on. Oh gosh, I hit that. Continue on with how you would do suggest that new SDRs overcome that phone anxiety.
So another tip, and I'm glad that everybody mentioned it already in the chat, is listening to your favorite pump song. It doesn't matter if it's Roar by Katy Perry, it's mine, or if it's something like AC/DC. I even have a song that I like to listen to after I get a meeting, just to feel great about it, just to feel pumped up. You definitely want to carry that pump during the day because as an SDR you're going to be told no a lot, not interested. You're going to be given every objection in the book. So it's kind of hard to keep your morale up. But if you do these little things, you know, you're going to get to that meeting. You're going to get to that good call eventually.
Awesome. Well, on that note, one last question for all of you. And thank you for being such an engaged audience in the chat. It's been amazing having this chat with you. What is your go to pre cold call session or pre cold call pump up tune? And if you don't have one picked out yet, if you've never used one, what would it be? Give you guys a few seconds to put that in there. But while you're entering that stuff in, reminders. So we've got the LinkedIn ebook that is going to be up at the top of the chat. The chat will be archived. So if you watch this back at a later point, if you watch the recorded version on YouTube, you'll be able to see that. So our pals in marketing have shared the link to the Art of LinkedIn Prospecting, which is our LinkedIn ebook. Once again, a really great resource to learn about social selling, about LinkedIn optimization, about what experiments we've done on what works and what doesn't in terms of messaging, in terms of LinkedIn connection request messages and all of that kind of stuff. Great resource there. Another reminder to join our Slack community. So our predictable revenue or PredRev Slack community is available. That link is there as well. You can ask us questions. You can ask questions of other sales experts. You can engage and kind of network with other sales practitioners and leaders from all over the world. So that's a really great place to be if you have any questions. We have some good suggestions for songs coming in here. We have Rebel Beat by Goo Goo Dolls. Nice, nice. We have Dave Matthews Band, Crush. Wow, I like that. Kyle's got a bit of a soft spot in his heart, even though he does his power pose. No, that was Jack who did his power pose. Kyle did something else funny that I thought he would be nude doing. Bel Perez, Hello World. That's a good song, Caesar. Freebird, Tomas. Nice.
Awesome choice.
Praise and worship to get strength for the man upstairs. That's great. Pull from whatever source you can to get that power, Sonia. Firework by Katy Perry. We've got a fellow Katy Perry fan. Gibran, you and Sandra would do a good pre-call pump up session together. Gibran, what
Awesome,
was so your pre-call song is Roar by Katy Perry. What was your post meeting booked celebratory song?
We Are the Champions by Queen. It just
nice.
felt right for
what
the moment.
What a classic. Well, thank you so much, Gibran, for coming on this live stream. This was really fun. And thank you all of you guys for being so engaged. It's so wonderful to have all of you guys here. Gibran, if people want to learn more from you, where can they do that?
Well, first I want to say thanks to everybody for watching and engaging. And if you want to connect, whether I can help you out, or even better, you can help me out. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Gibran, Gibran, and just put predictable revenue, and I should be the first option.
There you go. Same for me, Sarah Jane Hicks on LinkedIn. You guys can always shoot me a connection request, ask me any questions that you might have. And you can also direct questions to me in that PredRev Slack community if you have them. So once again, thank you so much for joining us on another edition of PredRev Live. Have a fantastic rest of your Thursday, guys. See you again next time.
Have a